She and her friends laughed at her husband, calling him gay, harmless, invisible. A marriage she never planned to take seriously, until a coworker touched her, and her quiet husband threatened to end his career without raising his voice. She hated him for how much it affected her. Still, she kissed him. Then the truth shattered everything. Her father didn't give her away. He owed him. So the question is simple. Was this love or a debt that turned into obsession? Welcome to Afro-Korean Stories TV, beasties. Please like, share, and subscribe. The penthouse was silent except for the hum of Seoul below. Naomi stood frozen in the doorway, staring at the man she'd married 6 months ago. The man she'd mocked, dismissed, gaslit into believing he wasn't enough. Min-jun sat at the piano, fingers hovering over keys he never played anymore, his jaw tight with something she couldn't name. When he finally looked up, his dark eyes held no anger, only certainty. And for the first time since their wedding, Naomi felt afraid, not of him, but of how badly she wanted him to prove her wrong. The arrangement had been simple. Her father's pharmaceutical company needed Korean distribution channels. Min-jun's family controlled half the medical supply network in East Asia. Marriage solved both problems. Naomi had agreed, because at 26, she was tired of dating men who wanted her body, but never her ambition. Min-jun seemed safe, quiet, undemanding, and according to the rumors his own family whispered, completely uninterested in women. She'd laughed about it with her friends over wine. "At least I won't have to pretend," she'd said, bitter and triumphant. "He probably won't even touch me." The wedding had been beautiful, cold. They'd smiled for cameras and signed contracts. That night, Min-jun had kissed her forehead and slept in the guest room. Every night since, he'd done the same. Naomi told herself she was relieved. Later that evening, she came home to find him cooking. The sight stopped her mid-step. Min-jun moved through the kitchen with the same precision he brought to everything, measuring, chopping, adjusting heat with barely a glance. He wore a black sweater pushed up to his elbows, and for the first time, she noticed the lean muscle in his forearms. "You don't have to do this," she said, dropping her bag on the counter. "We have staff. I like cooking." His voice was quiet, accented, maddeningly calm. "Sit." She almost argued. Instead, she sat. He placed a bowl in front of her, kimchi jjigae, perfectly balanced, the kind that took hours to develop flavor. Naomi ate in silence, hating how good it was, hating more than he'd remember. She mentioned liking spicy food once, weeks ago, in passing. "Thank you," she said finally. Min-jun nodded and turned back to the dishes. The next morning, Naomi woke to find her favorite coffee waiting on the nightstand. Not the expensive blend her father sent from Ethiopia. The specific medium, roast from the cafe 3 blocks away that she'd bought exactly once. She stared at the cup for a full minute before drinking it. By the end of the week, a pattern emerged. Min-jun anticipated her needs before she voiced them. He restocked her skincare products when they ran low, adjusted the thermostat because she always ran cold, left notes when he'd be late, neat handwriting, no unnecessary words. He never asked for anything in return. Naomi started testing him. She'd mentioned craving something obscure, Ghanaian kelewele, New Orleans beignets, and it would appear within days. She'd complain about a difficult client, and somehow that client would suddenly become accommodating. She'd sigh about missing her sister in Atlanta, and plane tickets would arrive in her email. "Why are you doing this?" she demanded one night, cornering him in his study. Min-jun looked up from his laptop. In the low light, his features were sharper than usual. High cheekbones, strong jaw, eyes that seemed to see through her defenses. "Doing what?" "All of it. The coffee, the food, the—" She gestured helplessly. "The noticing. You're my wife. In name only." Something flickered across his face. Is that what you want it to be? The question hung between them, dangerous. Naomi's mouth went dry. She'd expected easy denial, not this quiet challenge that made her pulse spike. I don't know what you are, she said instead, deflecting. Your own family jokes about you preferring men. We've never, I know what they say. Min-jun closed his laptop slowly. I've never bothered correcting them. Why not? He stood, and suddenly the room felt smaller. He didn't approach her, but his presence expanded anyway, filling the space until Naomi's back pressed against the doorframe. Because what I want is nobody's business, he said quietly. And because people who underestimate me don't see the knife until it's already buried. Her breath caught. That's not an answer, isn't it? He tilted his head slightly. You assumed I was safe, Naomi. Convenient. A husband who'd leave you alone. He took one step closer. Were you right? She should move. Leave. Laugh it off like she'd laughed off everything else about this marriage. Instead, she lifted her chin. I don't know. Were you lying? No. His gaze dropped to her mouth, then back up. I've never been interested in men. Then who? You know who. The confession was so quiet she almost missed it. Almost. Naomi's heart slammed against her ribs as Min-jun stepped back, giving her space she suddenly didn't want. Go to bed, he said, voice rough, before I stop being civilized about this. She fled. A few days later, Naomi's firm landed a major account, a luxury hotel chain expanding into West Africa. The celebration dinner was at an upscale restaurant in Gangnam, and she'd invited Min-jun out of obligation. He'd surprised her by accepting. Now she watched him across the table, nursing whiskey while her colleagues grew progressively drunker. He'd barely spoken all night, but his attention never wavered from her. Every time someone laughed too loudly or leaned too close, his jaw would tighten almost imperceptibly. Marcus, the hotel chain's VP, slid into the seat beside her. He was handsome in an obvious way, tall, charming, with an American accent that felt like home. So you're the genius who convinced our board, Marcus said, smiling wide. I have to say, when they told me to expect brilliance, they undersold it. Naomi laughed, comfortable in a way she hadn't been in months. Flattery won't get you better terms. No? He leaned in conspiratorially. What will? Across the table, Min-jun went absolutely still. Naomi felt it like a pressure change before a storm. She glanced over and found him watching Marcus with the kind of focus that made her stomach drop. Not angry. Worse. Calculating. Marcus, Min-jun said softly. The VP looked up, smile still in place. Yeah, your hand. Marcus glanced down, seemingly just now realizing his fingers had drifted to Naomi's forearm. He pulled back quickly. Sorry, man. Didn't mean you did. Min-jun took a slow sip of whiskey. Touch my wife again, and I'll buy your company specifically to fire you. The table went silent. Marcus laughed uncertainly. Jesus, it's not that serious. Isn't it? Min-jun stood, buttoning his suit jacket with careful precision. He looked at Naomi. We're leaving. It wasn't a question. In the car, Naomi's hands shook with something that wasn't quite anger. You can't just threaten my colleagues. I can. Min-jun's knuckles were white on the steering wheel. I did. He was just being friendly. He was testing boundaries. Min-jun's voice stayed level, but she heard the razor edge beneath. Seeing how far he could push before I reacted, now he knows. This is insane. You don't own me. The car stopped abruptly. They weren't home yet, just some empty side street in Itaewon. Min-jun turned to face her fully, and in the dim light from the street lamps, his expression was stripped bare. I know I don't own you, he said quietly. But I am yours, Naomi. Completely. So when another man touches what's mine, When he looks at you like he's entitled to your attention. He stopped, jaw working. I stopped being civilized. You said we were married in name only. You said that. I never agreed. Her pulse thundered. Then what do you want? Everything. The word dropped between them like a grenade. I want to wake up next to you. I want your bad days and your good ones. I want to know every thought that crosses your mind and every dream you've buried because you thought no one would care enough to ask. His hand flexed on the wheel. I want you to stop flinching every time I get close, like I'm going to disappoint you the way everyone else has. Naomi couldn't breathe. You can't just, people don't, I do. He reached over slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, his hand cupped her jaw with devastating gentleness. I have since the day we met, since you walked into that boardroom like you owned it, and argued with my father about distribution ethics for 40 minutes, since you laughed at his terrible joke just to put him at ease, then demolished his numbers with such precision he couldn't even be mad. His thumb brushed her cheek. You were magnificent. I took one look at you and knew I was completely fucked. The marriage contract was my idea. My father wanted a different arrangement. I told him it was you or no one. The confession rewired something fundamental in her brain. You lied to me. No, I gave you space. You needed to feel safe, so I made myself safe. But I'm not Naomi. His eyes burned in the darkness. I'm obsessive and jealous, and so far gone for you that watching another man's hand on your arm makes me want to commit crimes. That's not love. It's both. His voice roughened. And if you can't handle it, tell me now. I'll back off, sleep in the guest room forever, play the convenient husband until you decide you want something real. He leaned closer, breath ghosting over her lips. But if there's even a chance you feel a fraction of what I do, stop running. Let me prove I'm not going anywhere. She should say no. This was too much, too intense, too... Naomi kissed him. Minjun went rigid for half a heartbeat. Then he was hauling her across the center console, angling her head to deepen the kiss, with a hunger that stole her breath. His control shattered completely, replaced by something raw and desperate. One hand fisted in her hair, while the other splayed across her lower back, pulling her closer, like he could merge them into one person. When they finally broke apart, both gasping, his forehead pressed to hers. Home, he said roughly. Now. The drive back was silent, electric. Minjun's hand stayed on her thigh, thumb drawing absent circles that made her shiver. Every red light felt like torture. Every turn brought them closer to a point of no return. Inside the penthouse, they barely made it past the entrance before he was kissing her again. Slower this time, but no less consuming. He walked her backwards until her spine hit the wall, his body a solid line of heat against hers. Tell me to stop, he murmured against her throat. Don't you dare. His control broke entirely. Later, much later, Naomi lay in Minjun's bed, his sheets tangled around her bare legs, his arm heavy across her waist. The room was dark, except for the glow of soul through the windows. She could feel his heartbeat against her back, still elevated, matching her own. Reality crept in slowly. She'd just slept with her husband, who'd orchestrated their entire marriage, who'd lied by omission for months, who'd just confessed to being obsessively in love with her in a way that should terrify her. It did terrify her, not because she didn't want it, because she wanted it too much. Every man before Minjun had left. Her first boyfriend, who'd said she was too much. Her ex-fiancé, who'd cheated with someone quieter, easier. Her father, emotionally, if not physically, after her mother died. Everyone left eventually. Everyone found her wanting. Minjun's arm tightened around her waist, as if sensing her thoughts. "Stop," he murmured into her hair. "Stop what?" "Whatever you're thinking that's making you tense." He pressed a kiss to her shoulder. "I can feel you building walls." "I'm not, Naomi." He turned her to face him, and even in the darkness his gaze was steady. "I'm not going anywhere." "You don't know that." "I do. People always say that. Then they realize that you're brilliant, demanding, that you have opinions and ambitions, and you refuse to make yourself smaller for anyone's comfort." He stroked her cheek. "I know all of that. It's why I want you." Her throat tightened. "It's different after. When the excitement fades, it won't. You can't promise." "Watch me." He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her mouth. Soft touches that felt like vows. "I will prove it every single day until you believe me, and then I'll keep proving it anyway." Tears burned behind her eyes. She wanted to believe him so badly it physically hurt. "What if I'm not enough?" The question came out broken. Minjun went very still. Then he was pulling her closer, tucking her head under his chin. "You're everything. And if I ever make you doubt that again, you have permission to leave." "But Naomi," his voice turned rough, "you're not getting rid of me that easily." She fell asleep to the sound of his heartbeat, steady and sure. The next morning, she woke up alone. The sheets beside her were cold. Minjun's side of the bed looked untouched, like he'd never been there at all. Naomi sat up slowly, that familiar panic building in her chest. He left. Of course he left. The intensity was too much, or she was too much, or he'd gotten what he wanted, and now? A note sat on the nightstand. "The meeting ran early. Didn't want to wake you. Coffee's ready. I'll be home by noon." Naomi released a shaky breath. She was being ridiculous. It was just a meeting. He'd left a note. Coffee. She found her way to the kitchen on unsteady legs. True to his word, her favorite blend waited in the French press, still warm. Besides it, a plate of fresh fruit and pastries from the bakery she liked. And another note. "Strawberries, because you mentioned craving them yesterday. Croissants, because I'm trying to bribe you into forgiving me for leaving." Despite everything, she smiled. By the end of the week, Minjun had proven disturbingly consistent. He still anticipated her needs, still cooked dinner when he could, still left notes when work pulled him away early. But now he also kissed her goodbye every morning, held her hand in the car, pulled her onto his lap when she tried to work beside him in his study, claiming he focused better with her close. The touches were constant, casual, devastating. His hand at the small of her back, his fingers are threading through hers. The way he'd hook his chin over her shoulder while she cooked, arms wrapped around her waist like he couldn't bear distance. Naomi found herself softening despite her better judgment. They fell into a rhythm. He'd work from home when possible, just to be near her. She'd drag him away from his laptop for lunch, forcing him to eat actual food instead of surviving on coffee and single-minded focus. They'd argue about everything: politics, movies, the correct way to load a dishwasher, and then he'd kiss her mid-rant until she forgot what they were fighting about. It felt too good, too easy. That should have been her first warning. A few days later, everything shifted. Naomi was having lunch with her father when she overheard him on a call. She'd stepped away to take her own phone call, but when she returned, his voice carried from the restaurant's hallway. "Don't care what the board thinks. Minjun's family owes us. The marriage contract specifically states..." Her blood went cold. She stood frozen until he finished the call, then walked back to the table on autopilot. Her father smiled at her, like nothing had happened, like he hadn't just confirmed every fear she'd been suppressing. The marriage contract specifically states. That night, she waited until Minjun came home. He found her in the living room, sitting in the dark. "Naomi?" His voice shifted immediately from tired to alert. "What's wrong?" The contract. Her voice sounded strange, distant. What does it say? He went very still. What did you hear? My father was on a call. Something about your family owing us. About the contract, specifically stating... She looked up at him. What am I missing? Min-jun's jaw tightened. For a long moment he didn't answer. Then he moved to the bar cart and poured himself a drink. Neat whiskey, which he never did. The marriage wasn't just about distribution channels, he said finally. Obviously. What else? He downed half the glass. 3 years ago, my father made a catastrophic investment based on intel from yours. It cost us nearly 2 billion won. Your father claimed it was an honest mistake. My father disagreed. Naomi's stomach dropped. So the marriage was, what? Repayment? Insurance. Min-jun turned to face her. A guarantee that our families would be permanently aligned. That your father couldn't afford to sabotage us again without destroying his own daughter's position. I'm collateral. You were never supposed to know. The confirmation felt like a physical blow. And you, what? Decided to play the devoted husband to make it easier. Pretend you cared so I wouldn't cause problems. No. He set the glass down hard enough that it cracked. Everything I told you was true. I wanted you from the beginning. The contract just gave me an excuse to trap me. To have a chance with you. You never would have looked at me otherwise. So you lied? I withheld context. His voice hardened. There's a difference. Not to me. Naomi stood on shaking legs. I can't. She left. Not the penthouse. She went to the guest room and locked the door. Min-jun didn't follow immediately. She heard him in the hallway for a long moment, then his footsteps retreated. That night, she barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw her father's calculating smile, Min-jun's careful notes, the way he'd orchestrated everything with such precision. How many of those thoughtful gestures were genuine? How much of his obsession was just really excellent acting? The next morning, she found another note slid under her door. I'm sorry. I should have told you everything from the beginning. But I'm not sorry for wanting you. I'm not sorry for any of it except causing you pain. Take your time. I'll be here when you're ready to talk. She crumpled it without reading it twice. By the end of the week, they existed in careful orbit. Min-jun gave her space, but never disappeared completely. Coffee still appeared. Dinner was still cooked. He still left notes, though now they were simple. Meeting until late or leftovers in the fridge, stripped of any affection. The absence of his warmth felt like frostbite. Naomi told herself she was justified. He'd lied. Used her. Built their entire relationship on a foundation of manipulation and corporate strategy. But late at night, alone in the guest room, she couldn't stop remembering the way he'd looked at her. The raw honesty in his voice when he'd confessed to being hers. The careful way he touched her, like she was precious. Had any of it been real? Later that evening, her sister called. You sound terrible, Amara said bluntly. What happened? Naomi told her everything. The contract, the debt, Min-jun's confession. When she finished, silence stretched across the line. So let me get this straight, Amara said finally. He married you because he was already obsessed with you. The contract just gave him an excuse. And his crime is not explaining the political complexity of your arranged marriage before falling completely in love with you. He lied by omission. Babe, you married a man you thought was gay just to avoid dealing with actual intimacy. You lied to yourself for months. He lied to protect you from family drama you couldn't control anyway. Amara's voice softened. I'm not saying he was right, but maybe ask yourself what you're really angry about. After they hung up, Naomi sat with that question. What was she really angry about? That he'd orchestrated their marriage? Or that he'd done it so well she'd fallen for him anyway? That he'd withheld information? Or that she now had an excuse to pull away before he could leave first? The truth settled, like lead in her stomach. She was angry because loving him meant being vulnerable, meant trusting that he wouldn't wake up one day and realize she was too difficult, too demanding, too much. And that terrified her more than any lie. The next morning, Naomi woke to silence. No coffee on the nightstand. No note slid under the door. She told herself it was fine. She'd asked for space. But the absence carved out something hollow in her chest. She found Min Jun in the kitchen, already dressed for work. He looked exhausted, with shadows under his eyes that hadn't been there a week ago. When he noticed her, his expression didn't change. "There's coffee," he said quietly. "I made extra." "Thank you." They moved around each other like strangers, professional, distant. Everything she'd claimed to want 6 months ago now felt like punishment. Min Jun grabbed his briefcase. At the door, he paused. "I have meetings all day. I'll be late tonight." "Okay." He left without looking back. Naomi stood in the empty penthouse and finally let herself cry. A few days later, she forced herself back to normal. Work helped. The hotel account kept her busy, and Marcus had been refreshingly professional since that disastrous dinner. No more lingering touches, no more testing boundaries. She should have been relieved. Instead, she missed Min Jun's jealousy. Missed the way his eyes would track her across a room like she was the only person who mattered. Missed the quiet intensity of his attention. Later that evening, she came home to find him cooking again. The sight stopped her in the doorway, not because it was unusual, but because she'd forgotten how much she loved watching him move through the kitchen with that careful precision. "You didn't have to," she said softly. Min Jun glanced over his shoulder. "I know. I wanted to." They ate in silence. The food was perfect, as always. He'd made her favorite, jerk chicken with rice and peas, somehow managing to get the spice level exactly right, despite never having cooked Caribbean food before. "When did you learn this?" she asked. "Last week. There's a Jamaican grandmother in Etowan who teaches cooking classes." He took a sip of water. "She called me a disaster for the first 3 days." Despite everything, Naomi smiled. "You took classes? You mentioned missing your mother's cooking." I thought. He stopped, jaw tightening. "It doesn't matter." "It does." The words escaped before she could stop them. "It matters, Min Jun." He looked at her then, really looked at her, and the naked hope in his eyes nearly broke her. "Does it?" His voice was carefully neutral. "Because I can't tell anymore. You won't talk to me, won't let me near you. I'm trying to give you space, but Naomi." His hand flexed on the table. "I don't know what you want from me. I want to trust you. Then trust me. It's not that simple." "It is." He stood abruptly, chair scraping against tile. "Either you believe me when I say I love you, or you don't. Either you're willing to build something real with me, or you're looking for an excuse to run. Which is it?" Her throat tightened. "That's not fair. None of this is fair." He moved closer, stopping just outside her reach. "I fell in love with a woman who was supposed to be a business arrangement. I spent 6 months being civilized and patient while wanting to drag you to bed every single night. I gave you space when you needed it, and pushed when you didn't. I learned to cook your mother's recipes, and memorized your coffee order, and bought plane tickets so you could see your sister." His voice roughened. "I've been obsessed with you since the moment we met, and I'm not apologizing for it anymore. So tell me, Naomi, what exactly do I have to do to prove I'm not going anywhere?" "You can't promise that. Watch me." He closed the distance between them, hands framing her face. "I will be here tomorrow, and the day after, and every day for the rest of our lives. I will be here when you're angry, and when you're scared, and when you're pushing me away because you think you're protecting yourself. I will be here." She kissed him. Minjun made a sound low in his throat and pulled her closer, kissing her back with a desperation that matched her own. His hand slid into her hair, angling her head to deepen the kiss. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, his forehead pressed to hers. "I'm scared," she whispered. "I know. Everyone leaves. I won't. You can't know that. I do." He pulled back just enough to meet her eyes. "Because leaving you would destroy me. Because I've never wanted anything the way I want you. Because even thinking about a life without you makes me feel like I can't breathe." His thumb brushed her cheek. "So yeah, Naomi, I can promise. I am promising." She wanted to believe him so badly it hurt. "The contract. Fuck the contract." His voice turned harsh. "I'll dissolve it tomorrow if that's what you need. I'll walk away from my family's business. I'll give you a divorce and spend the rest of my life proving I wanted you, not some corporate alliance." He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her mouth. "Just stop running from me." "I don't know how." "Then let me catch you." That night, they ended up tangled together on the couch, not having sex, just holding each other. Minjun's hand traced absent patterns on her spine, while she listened to his heartbeat. Steady. Sure. Exactly like him. "Tell me about the first time you saw me," she said quietly. She felt him smile against her hair. "You wore a red dress, professional but bold. You walked into that boardroom like you owned it, and my father immediately underestimated you. Most people do. I didn't." His hand stilled on her back. "You started talking about ethical supply chains and fair labor practices, and I thought, here's someone who actually gives a damn. Someone who sees the people behind the profit, margins." He pressed a kiss to her temple. "Then you laughed at my father's terrible joke, and I realized you were also kind, strategic enough to put him at ease, smart enough to know when to push and when to let someone save face. That's when you decided?" "No, that's when I knew I was in trouble." His voice roughened. "I decided 3 seconds after you walked in. One look at you, and something just clicked. Like I'd been waiting my entire life without knowing what I was waiting for." Naomi's chest tightened. "That's insane." "Probably." He turned her face up to his. "But I looked at you and thought, her. It's her. And every moment since has just confirmed it. Even when I'm difficult. Especially then. You don't make yourself smaller for anyone, Naomi. You fight for what you believe in. You demand better from the people around you." He smiled slightly. "You make me better." She kissed him again, slower this time, deliberate. When they finally pulled apart, his eyes were dark with want. "Bedroom," she whispered. "Are you sure? Stop being civilized, Minjun." Something dangerous flickered across his face. Then he was lifting her, carrying her down the hallway, while she laughed against his throat. They barely made it to the bed before his control shattered completely. The next morning, Naomi woke, wrapped around Minjun like a vine. His arm was locked around her waist, his face buried in her hair. She could feel him breathing, slow, steady, deeply asleep. For the first time in weeks, the panic didn't come. She watched him sleep, studying the face she'd spent 6 months pretending not to notice. Strong jaw, sharp cheekbones, the faint scar near his temple from some childhood accident. He looked younger like this, softer. The intensity that usually radiated from him temporarily banked. Her husband. The word didn't feel like a cage anymore. When Minjun finally woke, he found her staring at him. For a moment, neither moved. Then he smiled. Genuine, unguarded, devastating. "Hi," he said quietly. "Hi, you're still here. Where else would I be?" His hand came up to cup her face, thumb brushing her cheekbone. "I thought maybe you'd run again." "I'm done running." Something shifted in his expression. Relief, hope, love so fierce it stole her breath. "Good," he murmured, pulling her closer. "Because I wasn't planning to let you go anyway." They spent the morning in bed, talking, laughing, existing in a bubble where corporate contracts and family drama couldn't touch them. Min-jun told her about growing up in Seoul, the pressure of being the eldest son, the way he'd learned to weaponize people's underestimation of him. "They thought I was weak because I was quiet," he said, fingers tracing patterns on her shoulder. "So I let them think it. Built my power in the shadows, while they weren't looking. That's terrifying. That's strategic." He kissed her collarbone. "I learned early that the most dangerous people are the ones nobody sees coming." "Is that what you are? Dangerous? When it comes to protecting what's mine?" "Absolutely." The possessiveness should have bothered her. Instead, it sent heat pooling low in her stomach. "I'm not a possession." "No, you're so much worse." His eyes met hers, dark and intense. "You're the thing I can't live without. The person who makes me want to burn the whole world down if it means keeping you safe." He rolled, pinning her beneath him. "So yeah, Naomi, I'm dangerous, especially when it comes to you." She pulled him down for a kiss that quickly escalated into something more. Later that afternoon, reality intruded. Min-jun's phone rang, his father. She watched his expression shudder into something cold and professional as he answered in Korean. The conversation was brief, clipped, ending with what sounded like reluctant agreement. "What was that about?" she asked when he hung up. "Family dinner. Tomorrow night." His jaw tightened. "Both our fathers will be there. Some business associates. My father wants to show off the successful merger." "The successful marriage, you mean?" In his mind, they're the same thing. Min-jun pulled her against him. "You don't have to go. I can make an excuse." "No." Naomi straightened her shoulders. "I'm done hiding. If we're doing this, really doing this, then I face your family." Pride flickered across his face. "They're going to try to intimidate you." "Let them try." His smile turned sharp. "God, I love you." The words were casual, thrown out like an observation about the weather. But Naomi's heart still stuttered. She'd heard him say it before, in passion, in confession. But this felt different. Certain. "Say it again," she whispered. Min-jun cupped her face, suddenly serious. "I love you. I'm in love with you. I will love you tomorrow and every day after that until I stop breathing." He kissed her softly. "And probably even after that. That's excessive. Get used to it." She laughed despite herself, then sobered. "I love you too. I think I have for a while. I was just too scared to admit it. You're not scared now? I'm terrified. But I'm doing it anyway. That's my girl." He pulled her into his lap. "We'll figure out the rest together." That night, they made plans. Min-jun would dissolve the financial aspects of their marriage contract. They'd refinance both companies to remove any leverage. If their fathers objected, they'd walk away from both family businesses entirely. "I'm serious," Min-jun said. "I don't need their approval. I don't need their money. I just need you." That's easy to say now. It's easy to say because it's true. He laced their fingers together. "I built my fortune once. I can do it again. But you," his voice roughened, "you're irreplaceable." Naomi looked at their joined hands and felt something settle in her chest. Not fear, not doubt, trust. The next evening, they dressed for dinner. Naomi chose a black dress, elegant, professional, armor disguised as fashion. Min-jun wore a tailored suit that made him look exactly like what he was. Powerful, controlled, dangerous. In the car, his hand stayed on her thigh. "Remember," he said quietly, "you don't have to prove anything to them. You're already everything I want. I'm doing this for us, not them." His fingers tightened on her leg. "If anyone disrespects you, I can handle myself. I know, but I might not be civilized about it anyway." The restaurant was exclusive, private. They were led to a back room where both their fathers waited, along with several business associates. Min-jun's father, tall, silver-haired, radiating cold authority, stood when they entered. "Min-jun, Naomi." His smile didn't reach his eyes. "So glad you could join us." Naomi's father rose as well, his expression careful. They hadn't spoken since she'd overheard his phone call. The betrayal still burned. Dinner was excruciating. Conversation stayed surface level. Business developments, market trends, political maneuvering. Naomi participated when required, but mostly she watched, cataloged the power dynamics, noticed how Min-jun's father spoke over him, how her own father avoided meeting her eyes. They treated her like a trophy, a successful acquisition. Halfway through the meal, one of the business associates, an older man whose name she'd already forgotten, turned to her with a condescending smile. "You must be so pleased," he said in heavily accented English. "Landing such a good match. Min-jun's family is very powerful." "I didn't land anything," Naomi said coolly. "We chose each other." Of course," he waved dismissively. "But you understand the value of the alliance for your father's company. I understand that my marriage is nobody's business except mine and my husband's." The table went quiet. Min-jun's hand found hers under the table, squeezing once. Approval. "Naomi," her father said carefully, "he's just making conversation. No, he's reducing me to a transaction." She looked around the table. "You all are. But I'm not here to be paraded around as proof of a successful merger. I'm here because Min-jun is my husband, and I love him. Everything else is irrelevant." Min-jun's father's expression hardened. "Perhaps you don't understand how these arrangements work. I understand perfectly." Naomi's voice stayed steady. "You manipulated both of us into a marriage to serve your corporate interests. You used your son's feelings as leverage and treated me like collateral. But here's what you don't understand. We don't need your approval. We don't need your contracts, or your money, or your carefully constructed alliances." She stood, pulling Min-jun up with her. "We just need each other." Min-jun's smile was sharp as a blade. What she said. They walked out together. In the car, adrenaline made Naomi's hands shake. "I just told off both our fathers and destroyed any hope of family support." "You were perfect." Min-jun pulled over abruptly, turning to face her. "Do you have any idea how incredible you are? I might have ruined everything. You saved everything." He kissed her hard. "You stood up for us, for our marriage. You told them exactly what I've been wanting to say for years." He laughed, breathless. "God, Naomi, you're everything. They're going to make our lives difficult. Let them try." His expression turned cold. "I have enough leverage on both of them to make things very uncomfortable if they push. And if they don't back off," he shrugged, "we start over. New companies, new life, just us." "You'd really walk away from everything? From them?" "In a heartbeat." He pulled her across the console into his lap. "You're my everything, Naomi. They're just people I happen to be related to." She kissed him again, deeper this time. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, his eyes were dark with promise. "Home," he said roughly. "Now." They barely made it inside before he had her pressed against the door. Later that night, tangled together in bed, Naomi's phone buzzed. Her sister. "Dad just called me, screaming." "What the hell did you do?" Naomi smiled and typed back, "Choose my husband over corporate politics. How's that for character growth?" "Finally." "About damn time. I like you with a spine. I've always had a spine." "Yeah, but now you're using it for the right reasons. Min-jun better appreciate what he's got." Naomi glanced at her husband, currently tracing lazy patterns on her bare shoulder, looking more relaxed than she'd ever seen him. "He does," she sent back. "Trust me." The next morning, they woke to chaos. Min-jun's phone exploded with messages. So did Naomi's. Both fathers were furious. Business associates were confused. The rumor mill was working overtime. Min-jun silenced his phone and pulled Naomi closer. "Ignore it. We can't ignore it forever. Watch me." He kissed her temple. "Today, you're mine. Tomorrow, we deal with the fallout. But right now, the rest of the world can wait." They spent the day being intentionally lazy. Min-jun cooked breakfast, perfectly fluffy pancakes that he claimed to have learned from YouTube. They watched movies in bed, talked about nothing and everything, existed in their own bubble. It felt like stolen time, precious and finite. By the end of the week, the situation escalated. Her father threatened to pull funding from several joint ventures. Min-jun's father called an emergency board meeting. Associates who'd been friendly suddenly went silent. "They're trying to force us back in line," Min-jun said, reading through emails with a cold expression. "Standard intimidation tactics. Is it working?" He looked up, eyes sharp. "What do you think?" "I think we fight." "Good." He closed his laptop. "Because I've been preparing for this my entire life. They underestimated me once. They're about to learn that was a mistake." "What are you planning?" "Something very strategic, and probably illegal in 3 countries. His smile was dangerous. "But first, I need you to trust me. Completely. Can you do that?" Naomi thought about everything they'd been through. The lies and truth. The fear and trust. The way he'd proven himself over and over, in small gestures and grand confessions. "Yes," she said simply. "I trust you." The relief in his eyes was profound. "Then let me handle this. And when the dust settles, we'll build something better. Something that's just ours. No more family interference. No more anything except us." He kept his promise. Over the next week, Min-jun worked 18-hour days, making calls, arranging meetings, moving pieces on a chessboard only he could see. He wouldn't tell her details, just kissed her forehead, and promised everything would be fine. Naomi tried to trust him, but waiting was torture. Later that evening, she was working from home when she heard shouting in the hallway. Before she could investigate, the penthouse door slammed open. Her father stood there, face red with fury. "You stupid girl," he spat. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" Min-jun materialized from his study, expression glacial. "Get out of my home. This is my daughter. This is my wife, and you're leaving. Now. Not until she hears what her precious husband has been doing." Her father turned to Naomi. "He's been systematically destroying our business relationships, calling in favors, spreading rumors about my ethics violations." His voice turned vicious. "He's using you as an excuse to wage war on our family." Naomi looked at Min-jun. His face was carefully blank, but she saw the tension in his shoulders. "Is it true?" she asked quietly. "Yes," her father laughed bitterly. "See? He doesn't even deny it. He's—" "Good," Naomi interrupted. "You manipulated us into this marriage. You used me as collateral. You treated me like a business asset instead of your daughter." She stood, moving to Min-jun's side. "So if he's destroying your business, you deserve it." Her father's face turned purple. "You ungrateful? Out." Min-jun's voice dropped to something lethal. "You have 3 seconds before I call security and have you removed. And trust me, if I have to do that, I'll make sure every business contact you have knows exactly why." For a moment, her father just stared at them. Then he turned and left, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the frame. Silence fell. "Are you okay?" Min-jun asked softly. "Are you really destroying his business?" "I'm removing him from any position where he can hurt you again. There's a difference." "That seems like semantics." "Probably." He pulled her into his arms. "But I won't apologize. He treated you like property. He manipulated both of us. And he was planning to use our marriage as leverage for decades." His voice hardened. "I'm making sure he never has that power again. What about my relationship with him? That's your choice. I won't force you to cut ties. But Naomi," he tilted her face up to his, "I will always protect you, even from your own family, especially from them." She knew she should be upset, should object to the manipulation, the cold calculation, the way he'd taken matters into his own hands. Instead, she felt safe. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now, we wait. In 3 days, I'll have enough leverage to force both our fathers into retirement. We restructure the companies with new leadership, remove all the corrupt elements." He smiled slightly. "And we live our lives without their interference. That's simple. That's simple." 3 days later, it was done. Both fathers announced early retirement. New leadership took over. People Min-jun had carefully vetted. The marriage contract was dissolved. All financial entanglements were severed. They were free. That night, Min-jun took her to the penthouse rooftop. Seoul spread out beneath them, a glittering landscape of possibility. "No more contracts," he said, pulling her close. "No more family drama. Just us." "Just us," she echoed. "So marry me." At her confused look, he smiled. Again. For real this time. Not because our families arranged it, or because of corporate strategy. Just because I love you and want to spend the rest of my life with you. Naomi's throat tightened. "We're already married." "That was a transaction. This is a choice." He cupped her face. "Choose me, Naomi. Not because you have to, because you want to. I already chose you." "Then say yes anyway." She laughed through tears. "Yes. God, yes." He kissed her under the stars, and for the first time since their wedding, it felt like a beginning instead of an ending. 2 months later, they renewed their vows. Small ceremony. Just Naomi's sister, a handful of close friends, and the officiant. No parents, no business associates, no one who'd treat their marriage like a merger. Naomi wore ivory, softer than her first wedding dress, more her. Min-jun couldn't stop staring at her during the ceremony, his hand trembling slightly when he slid the new ring onto her finger. "I promise," he said quietly, "to love you exactly as you are, to never make you smaller, to fight beside you, not for you, to be the person you can always count on." His voice roughened. "And to spend every day proving that choosing me was the right decision." She barely made it through her own vows without crying. Afterwards, they flew to Bali. 2 weeks of just them, no phones, no obligations. They made love on the beach at sunset, explored temples and rice terraces, spent lazy mornings in bed talking about the future. "I want kids," Min-jun said one night, fingers tracing patterns on her stomach. "Eventually, if you want them to." Naomi's breath caught. They'd never discussed this. "How many?" "2. Maybe 3. He looked up at her. "I want to build a family with you. The right way, with love instead of obligation." "That sounds perfect." "Yeah?" His smile was devastating. "Because I've been thinking about it for months. You, pregnant, our child, a life we built together." He kissed her stomach. "I want all of it." Okay. Let's make a family." She pulled him up for a kiss. "When we get home. Let's try." The hunger in his eyes turned molten. "You're sure?" I've never been more sure of anything. They spent the rest of the night making promises with their bodies. Back in Seoul, life took on a new rhythm. Naomi took over parts of her father's company, restructuring with ethics at the forefront. Min-jun expanded his own ventures, building something independent of his family's legacy. They worked side by side, building an empire that reflected their values. And they tried for a baby. 3 months in, Naomi found herself staring at a positive pregnancy test. She sat on the bathroom floor for 10 minutes, just breathing. This was real. They were going to be parents. The life they'd talked about was actually happening. When Min-jun came home, she met him at the door. "Hi," she said, suddenly nervous. He frowned immediately. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. She pulled the test from behind her back. Surprise? For a moment he just stared. Then his face transformed. Shock giving way to joy, so pure it took her breath away. He dropped his briefcase and pulled her into his arms, lifting her off the ground. "You're sure?" His voice was wrecked. 3 tests, all positive. He kissed her desperately, laughing against her mouth. When he finally set her down, his hands framed her face with devastating gentleness. "I love you," he said. "God, Naomi, I love you so much." "I love you too." He dropped to his knees, pressing his forehead against her still flat stomach. "Hi," he whispered. "I'm your dad, and I promise I'm going to be better than mine. I promise." His voice broke. Naomi ran her fingers through his hair, her own eyes burning. This was her life now. This beautiful, obsessive man who'd fought for her from the beginning, who'd proven over and over that love could be steady and fierce at the same time. "You're going to be an amazing father," she said softly. He looked up at her, eyes wet. "We're going to be amazing parents." "Yeah, we are." The pregnancy was smooth. Min-jun was predictably obsessive, reading every book, attending every appointment, cooking elaborate meals based on nutritional research. He talked to her stomach constantly, telling their baby about everything from his day to his plans for the future. "Your mom is incredible," he said one night, hand splayed across her growing bump. "She's brilliant and strong, and she doesn't take shit from anyone. You're lucky. We're both lucky." Naomi smiled in the darkness. "You're going to spoil this baby rotten." "Absolutely. No question." He kissed her stomach. "But I'll also teach them to be strong, to stand up for themselves, to never let anyone make them feel small. Like you taught me? Like you taught yourself. I just reminded you what you already knew." 4 months in, complications arose. Nothing major, just enough to require bed rest and careful monitoring. Naomi hated being sidelined, but Min-jun was merciless about enforcing the doctor's orders. "I'm not losing you," he said firmly when she tried to argue. "Or our baby. So you're staying in bed, and I'm handling everything else. I can still work. You can delegate, which you're terrible at, but you're learning." He kissed her forehead. "Let me take care of you, Naomi. Please." She did. And watching him manage both their businesses while also cooking, cleaning, and fussing over her was oddly attractive. He never complained, never made her feel like a burden, just handled everything with that quiet competence she'd fallen in love with. Later that evening, lying in bed while he worked on his laptop beside her, she studied his profile. "What?" he asked without looking up. "Just thinking about how different this is from 6 months ago." "Different how?" "I thought you were safe, convenient, a husband who'd leave me alone." She touched his arm. "I had no idea you'd become my entire world." He closed the laptop and turned to face her fully. "Good different or bad different?" "The best different." She laced their fingers together. "You scare me sometimes. How much I need you. How much it would destroy me to lose you." You're not going to lose me. You can't promise. I can. He brought her hand to his mouth, kissing her knuckles. Because there's no version of my life that doesn't have you in it. No future I want that you're not part of. You're it for me, Naomi. Forever. She believed him. At 7 months pregnant, everything shattered. Naomi was home alone, Min-jun at a meeting across town, when someone broke into the penthouse. She barely had time to register the sound before 3 men were in the bedroom, guns drawn. Come quietly, one said in accented Korean. Don't make this difficult. Terror locked her throat. Her hand went instinctively to her stomach, protective. What do you want? Not you. Your husband. But your leverage. They zip-tied her wrists, dragged her toward the door. She fought despite knowing it was useless, despite the baby, despite everything. The elevator doors opened. Min-jun stood there, absolutely still. His eyes took in the scene. Naomi, the men, the guns, and something inhuman flickered across his face. Let her go, he said quietly. We have orders. I don't care about your orders. Let her go. One of the men pressed a gun to Naomi's temple. Come with us, or she dies. For a heartbeat, nobody moved. Then Min-jun raised his hand slowly. Okay, I'll come. Just don't hurt her. Min-jun, no, it's okay. His eyes met hers, and despite everything, they were steady. Trust me. The men forced him to his knees. One moved to zip-tie his wrists. Min-jun moved. It happened so fast that Naomi barely processed it. One moment he was kneeling, hands raised. The next, the nearest man was on the ground, gun skittering across the floor. Min-jun had the second man in a chokehold before anyone could react. Run, he told Naomi. Now. She ran. Behind her, sounds of fighting. Gunshots. She made it to the stairwell, hands shaking so badly she could barely open the door. Then Min-jun was there, pulling her close. Blood on his shirt, not his, she hoped. His face was still that terrifying blank mask. Are you hurt? His hands moved over her frantically, checking for injuries. No. The baby. We're going to the hospital, right now. He was already moving, half carrying her down the stairs. My car's in the garage. Stay behind me. They made it to the car without incident. Min-jun drove with one hand, the other locked on her knee. His knuckles were split, bleeding. His jaw was so tight she thought it might crack. Who were they? She managed. Cleanup crew. Someone your father owed money to before I restructured everything. They thought kidnapping you would force me to settle his debts. His voice was absolutely flat. They were wrong. At the hospital, doctors confirmed the baby was fine. Naomi was fine, just shocked. They wanted to keep her overnight for observation. Min-jun didn't leave her side. Later that night, when she finally stopped shaking, she found him standing at the window. His shoulders were rigid, hands clenched into fists. Min-jun, I almost lost you, his voice cracked. I walked into that penthouse and saw a gun to your head and He turned to face her, and his eyes were devastated. I would have burned the world down. Right there. No hesitation. But you didn't. You saved me. Barely. He moved to the bed, careful not to jostle her. If I'd been 5 minutes later, you weren't. But I could have been. And then, he stopped, jaw working. I can't lose you, Naomi, I can't. You and this baby, you're everything. If something happened, nothing happened. We're safe. Not safe enough. His expression turned cold. But they will be. I'm going to make sure of it. The next morning, Min-jun disappeared. He returned hours later, looking exhausted, but satisfied. It's handled, was all he'd say. What's handled? The people who sent those men. The debt your father owed. All of it. He sat on the edge of her hospital bed. They won't come near us again. What did you do? Things I'm not going to tell you about, for your protection. He took her hand. But they're gone, Naomi. All the threats. All the people who thought they could use us. I made it very clear what happens to anyone who even thinks about touching my family. She should probably be disturbed by whatever he'd done. Instead, she felt safe. Okay, she said simply. Relief flickered across his face. Okay. I trust you. He kissed her, forehead, lingering. I'm moving us. New penthouse, better security, a safe room, bodyguards when you leave the building. At her look, he continued. I'm not taking chances anymore. Not with you. Not with our baby. That's excessive. I don't care. I will be excessive. I will be paranoid and overprotective and completely unreasonable. His hand found her stomach. Because I'm not losing either of you. Ever. They moved a week later. The new penthouse was a fortress. State-of-the-art security, panic room, guard stationed 24/7. It should have felt like a prison. Instead, it felt like safety. Min-jun became even more protective. He worked from home whenever possible, accompanied her to every appointment, hired a full-time nurse for the last month of pregnancy, just in case. This is insane, Naomi said, watching him review security footage for the third time that day. This is necessary. Min-jun, he turned to face her, and the raw fear in his eyes stopped her protests cold. I close my eyes, and I see that gun against your head. I hear the sound it would have made if I'd been too slow. I imagine a world where I failed to protect you. His voice roughened. So, yeah, maybe I'm going overboard. But I don't care. I will do whatever it takes to keep you safe. She crossed to him, taking his face in her hands. I'm safe. We're safe. You made sure of it. I know, but He pulled her close, careful of her stomach. I love you too much. Does that make sense? I love you so much, it's terrifying. I know the feeling. They stood like that for a long moment, holding each other. Two people who'd started as a transaction and become everything to each other. At 8 months, Naomi's father reached out. A simple email. Can we talk? She stared at it for an hour before showing Min-jun. Your choice, he said carefully. But I'll be there if you decide to meet him. What if he tries to manipulate us again? Then I'll remove him from our lives permanently. His voice was mild, but she heard the steel beneath. He gets one chance, Naomi. One. And only because he's your father. They met at a neutral cafe. Her father looked older, tired. He stood when she entered, eyes dropping to her stomach. You look beautiful, he said quietly. Naomi didn't sit. What do you want? To apologize for all of it. He gestured to the chair. Please, just give me 5 minutes. She sat. Min-jun remained standing behind her, a silent presence. Her father took a breath. I treated you like a business asset. I prioritized profit over your happiness. His voice cracked. I failed you as a father, and I'm sorry. You can't just apologize and expect. I don't expect anything. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I needed you to hear it. He looked at her stomach. You're going to be a parent soon, and I hope you do it better than I did. That you never make your child feel like their value is based on their utility. Naomi's throat tightened. Why now? Because I almost lost you. Those men who broke in. That was my debt, my mistakes coming back to hurt you. And Min-jun, he looked up at her husband. He could have let them take me instead. Could have used it as leverage to destroy me completely. But he protected you. Ended the threat entirely. He swallowed hard. He's a better man than I am. Yes, Min-jun said quietly. I am. Despite everything, Naomi almost smiled. Her father stood. I don't expect a relationship, but I want you to know I'm proud of you. Proud of the woman you've become despite my failures. And I'm sorry I wasn't the father you deserved. He left before she could respond. In the car, Min-jun took her hand. Are you okay? I don't know. Maybe. She leaned against him. Do you think he meant it? Probably. But it doesn't matter. He doesn't get access to you just because he apologized. He has to earn it. Would you let him? If I wanted a relationship with him? If you wanted it, yes. But he'd be watched, monitored. First sign of manipulation and he's gone. His hand tightened on hers. I won't let anyone hurt you again, Naomi. Not even family. That's very extreme. That's me being honest. He kissed her temple. You get to decide how much access he has. But I get to decide how much rope I give him before I cut him off. Deal? Deal. At 9 months, Naomi was ready to be done. Pregnancy was beautiful and miraculous, and she was over it. Her back ached, her feet were swollen. She couldn't see past her stomach, and Min-jun was insufferably attentive about all of it. Stop hovering, she said, swatting at him when he tried to adjust her pillows for the 3rd time. I'm helping. You're driving me insane. That's my job as your husband. He kissed her nose. Deal with it. I'm going to divorce you. No, you're not. You love me. I'm reconsidering. He laughed and pulled her into his arms, carefully. Always carefully. 2 more weeks, maybe less. Then we get to meet our baby. 2 weeks sounds like forever. I know, but you're doing amazing. He pressed a kiss to her temple. You're strong and beautiful, and I'm in awe of you every single day. That's just the pregnancy hormones talking. That's me telling the truth. His hand found her stomach. You're growing our child. You're building a human. That's incredible. She softened despite herself. When did you get so sappy? The moment I met you. I've just stopped hiding it. Labor started 3 days later. Middle of the night, sharp pains that had Naomi gasping. Min-jun was awake instantly, already moving, grabbing the hospital bag, calling the doctor, helping her to the car. Breathe, he said, one hand on the wheel, the other holding hers. Just breathe, baby. I've got you. This hurts. I know. I'm sorry. We're almost there. At the hospital, everything blurred. Contractions, doctors, Min-jun's hand in hers, his voice steady and calm, even when she could see the panic in his eyes. You're doing so well, he kept saying. So strong. I love you. You've got this. 17 hours later, their daughter was born. Min-jun cut the cord with shaking hands. Then the nurse placed their baby on Naomi's chest, and the world stopped. She was perfect, tiny and wrinkled, and absolutely perfect. Hi, Naomi whispered, tears streaming down her face. Hi, baby girl. Min-jun stood frozen beside the bed, staring at them both. When she looked up, his face was wet. We made her, he said, voice breaking. We made a person. We did. Naomi held out a hand. Come meet your daughter. He sat carefully on the edge of the bed, one hand hovering over the baby, like he was afraid to touch her. She's so small. She's perfect. She's everything. He finally let himself touch her cheek with one finger. The baby made a small sound, turning toward him. Something in Min-jun's expression cracked open completely. Hi, sweetheart. I'm your dad, and I promise. His voice broke. I promise I'm going to spend every day of my life making sure you feel loved and safe and valued exactly as you are. Naomi's chest tightened. What should we name her? They'd discussed names for months, but never decided. Now, looking at their daughter, the answer felt obvious. Hope, Min-jun said softly. Because that's what she is. Hope that we can build something better than what we came from. Hope, Naomi repeated. It's perfect. The first weeks with Hope were a blur of sleepless nights and overwhelming love. Minjun was predictably obsessive, tracking feeding schedules, researching sleep training methods, photographing their daughter constantly like he was afraid she'd disappear. "You need to sleep," Naomi said one night, finding him standing over Hope's crib at 3 a.m. "I'm fine. You're exhausted. So are you." He turned to face her. "But I can't stop watching her, making sure she's breathing, that she's safe." Naomi understood completely. She felt it too. That primal terror that something might steal this happiness away. "Come back to bed," she said softly. "We have the monitor. We'll hear her if she needs us." He followed reluctantly, but his hand found hers in the darkness. "I never knew I could love something this much. It's terrifying." "I know. If anything happened to either of you, nothing will." She squeezed his hand. "You've made us the safest people in Seoul, maybe the world." He pulled her closer. "Not safe enough. Never safe enough." Later that week, Naomi's father asked to meet Hope. The request came via email, formal, careful, asking permission rather than demanding. "What do you think?" she asked Minjun. He considered for a long moment. He's been respectful, kept his distance, hasn't tried to manipulate or push. His jaw tightened. But the second he crosses a line, I know. He's gone. She looked at Hope sleeping in her bassinet. "I want her to have grandparents, even imperfect ones. Then we'll try, but supervised and brief." They met at the penthouse, neutral territory, where Minjun controlled every variable. Security was present, but unobtrusive. Her father arrived exactly on time, hands empty, expression carefully neutral. When he saw Hope, something in his face crumbled. "She's beautiful," he whispered. "She has your eyes, Naomi. You can hold her, if you want." He looked startled, then carefully took Hope in his arms. The baby stirred but didn't wake. Her father's hands trembled slightly. "I'm sorry," he said quietly, not looking up. "For all of it. For making you feel like your value was transactional. For treating your marriage like a business deal." His voice roughened. "I see Minjun with you, the way he looks at you, the way he's built his entire world around protecting you, and I realize I never taught you that love could look like that." Naomi's throat tightened. "No, you didn't. I'm going to try to do better, with Hope, be the grandfather I should have been as a father." He finally looked up. "If you'll let me." She glanced at Minjun. He gave the smallest nod. Permission, but also warning. "We can try," she said. Slowly. Her father's relief was palpable. He stayed for an hour, holding Hope, asking careful questions about her health and sleep schedule. When he left, he thanked them both. After the door closed, Minjun pulled Naomi into his arms. "You okay?" "I think so. That was a start. Not forgiveness, but a start." "Is that enough?" "For now." He kissed her temple. "We'll see if he can maintain it." By the end of the month, they'd fallen into a new rhythm. Minjun worked from home most days, taking calls with Hope sleeping on his chest. Naomi gradually returned to work, rebuilding her father's company into something ethical. They hired a nanny for the hours they both needed to be in the office, but mostly they tag-teamed, one working while the other cared for Hope. It was exhausting and beautiful, and everything Naomi had never known she wanted. One evening, she found Minjun in Hope's nursery, holding their sleeping daughter, while humming something soft and Korean. The sight made her chest ache. "You're going to spoil her," she said from the doorway. "Absolutely." He didn't look away from Hope. "She's going to know every day of her life that she's loved, that she's valued exactly as she is, that she never has to earn affection or prove her worth. You're already an incredible father. I'm trying, his voice roughened. I keep thinking about what your father said, about not teaching you what love should look like, and I'm terrified I'll mess this up somehow, that I won't know how to show her. Naomi crossed to him, wrapping her arms around both of them. You won't. You couldn't. Look at you. You're already giving her everything she needs. He turned his head to kiss her. We both are. Later that night, after Hope was finally asleep in her crib and they'd collapsed into bed, Min-jun pulled Naomi against him. I need to tell you something, he said quietly. Her stomach dropped. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong, but he took a breath. I've been getting threats again. Not serious ones. Just noise from people who think I've gone soft since Hope was born. Min-jun, I'm handling it. But I wanted you to know. No more secrets. His arms tightened around her. Even when I'm trying to protect you, I won't lie. She twisted to face him. What kind of threats? Business rivals. People I pushed out when I restructured everything. They think fatherhood has made me weak. His smile was sharp. They're wrong. What are you going to do? Remove the threats. Permanently. At her look, he continued. Not violently, just strategically. By the end of the week, they won't be in a position to threaten anyone. You're sure? I'm sure. But Naomi, his expression turned serious. If anything escalates, if you feel unsafe for even a second, you tell me immediately. Promise? I promise. He kissed her forehead. Good. Because I refuse to let our daughter grow up with fear. She deserves better. We all do. We all have it. Because I will burn everything down before I let anyone hurt this family. She believed him. A few days later, Naomi was at the office when her assistant buzzed her. There's a man here to see you. He says it's urgent. Who is it? He won't give his name, but he says he knows your husband. Every instinct screamed danger. Call security. The door opened. A man walked in. Tall, expensive suit. Cold eyes that reminded her uncomfortably of Min-jun's father. Mrs. Park, he said in accented English. We need to talk about your husband. Naomi stood slowly. You have 30 seconds before I have you removed. Min-jun destroyed my business. Cost me billions. Ruined my reputation. He smiled, and it was terrible. I thought you should know what kind of man you married. I know exactly what kind of man I married. Do you? Do you know how many lives he's destroyed? How many families he's ruined? The man took a step closer. He's not the devoted husband you think he is. He's a monster. And now, his gaze dropped to a photo on her desk, Hope's face smiling up from the frame. Now, he has weaknesses. The threat was clear. Naomi's blood ran cold, but she kept her voice steady. Get out. Or what? You'll call your husband? By the time he gets here. The office door slammed open. Min-jun stood there, absolutely still. His eyes found Naomi first, checking for injuries, then locked on the intruder. You made a mistake, Min-jun said quietly. The man laughed. Did I? I'm just having a conversation with your wife. You threatened my daughter. The temperature in the room dropped. Naomi watched Min-jun's expression empty completely. That terrifying blank mask that meant someone was about to be destroyed. I didn't. You looked at her. Picture. You implied danger. Min-jun's voice stayed level, but she heard the murder beneath it. That was your last mistake. Security arrived. Min-jun's personal team, not building security. They moved with military precision, flanking the intruder. You can't do this, the man sputtered. I have rights. You forfeited those when you came near my family. Min-jun turned to his head of security. Everything. I want his accounts frozen, his assets seized, every business contact warned. I want him financially destroyed by tomorrow morning. And legally, I'll handle that personally. Min-jun's smile was vicious. Take him." They dragged the man out. His protests echoed down the hallway, then faded. Minjun turned to Naomi. The mask cracked, revealing raw fear. "Are you okay? Did he touch you?" "I'm fine. He just talked. He threatened Hope." Minjun's hands shook as he pulled her into his arms. "He came here. Got past building security. Got close to you." His voice cracked. "I should have seen this coming. Should have anticipated. You can't anticipate everything." "I have to. That's my job, keeping you safe, keeping Hope safe. And I almost..." He pulled back, hands framing her face. "We're leaving. Tonight. Different city. New identities if necessary. Whatever it takes to make sure this never happens again." "Minjun, that's extreme." "I don't care. I won't risk you. Either of you." His eyes were wild. "I'll walk away from everything. The business, the power. All of it. We'll disappear completely. Stop." She gripped his wrists. "Stop spiraling. We're not running. We're not hiding. You taught me that, remember? We fight. Not when it risks you. Then we fight smarter. But we don't abandon everything we've built because one desperate man made threats." She kissed him softly. "You'll handle him. You always do. And we'll be fine." He rested his forehead against hers, breathing hard. "I can't lose you. You won't. Promise me. Promise you'll be more careful. Extra security. No going anywhere alone. Promise." "I promise." She pulled him closer. "But you have to promise something too. Anything. Don't lose yourself in the fear. Don't let them turn you into someone who lives in constant terror." She touched his face. "Hope deserves parents who are strong, not paranoid." He closed his eyes. "I'm trying." "I know. We'll figure it out together." That night, Minjun increased security anyway. More guards, bulletproof cars, a second safe room installed in the penthouse. He couldn't help himself. Protecting them was written into his DNA. But he also tried to be present, to not let fear consume every moment, to hold hope without constantly checking the monitors, to kiss Naomi without immediately scanning for threats. It was a work in progress. Later that week, they received word that the man who'd threatened them was in custody. Minjun had built an airtight case: fraud, extortion, conspiracy. The bored man would spend the next decade in prison. "Is it over?" Naomi asked. "This threat is." Minjun's expression stayed cautious. "But there will always be another. That's the price of power." "So what do? We stay vigilant. We protect what matters. And we refuse to let fear control us." He pulled her close. "We live, Naomi. We love our daughter. We build the life we want. And if anyone tries to take it from us..." His voice turned cold. "We destroy them." She should probably be disturbed by his intensity. Instead, she felt safe. By the time Hope was 6 months old, life had settled into something almost normal. Minjun's business dealings stabilized. Naomi's company thrived. Her father visited regularly, carefully, respectfully, proving he could change. They were happy. One evening, after putting Hope to bed, they collapsed onto the couch together. Minjun pulled Naomi into his lap, and she went willingly. "I've been thinking," he said. "Dangerous." He smiled against her hair. "Maybe we should have another baby." Naomi pulled back to look at him. "Already?" "Eventually. Not right away, but..." He touched her face. "I love being a father. I love watching you be a mother. And I want Hope to have siblings, a family that's loud and messy and full of love. How many are we talking? 2 more? 3? At her expression, he laughed. "We'll negotiate. You're insane. About you? Absolutely." He kissed her softly. "So, what do you say? Eventually. Want to give Hope a brother or sister?" Naomi thought about it, about their life, about the family they'd built from a cold business arrangement, about how Min-jun had proven over and over that love could be fierce and steady at the same time. Eventually, she agreed, when Hope is a little older, when we're ready. We'll be ready. His hand slid into her hair. We'll be incredible. You really think so? I know so, because we already are. He kissed her deeper this time, heat building between them. Come to bed. It's barely 8. I don't care about the time. His eyes were dark with promise. I care about reminding you exactly how much I love you. She let him lead her to the bedroom. Later, tangled together in the sheets, Naomi traced patterns on Min-jun's chest. Do you ever regret it? The way we started? Never. Not for a second. He caught her hand, bringing it to his lips. I'd orchestrate 1,000 business deals if it meant ending up here with you. Even though I fought you every step of the way? Especially because of that. You never made it easy. You challenged me, pushed back, made me prove I was worth your time. He rolled, pinning her beneath him with careful strength. You're the best thing that ever happened to me, Naomi. You and Hope. You're everything. She pulled him down for a kiss. I love you. I love you more. That's not possible. Watch me prove it. The next morning, Naomi woke to find Min-jun already gone. Not unusual. He often rose early to work, so he could spend afternoons with Hope. But something felt different. She found a note on the nightstand. Meeting ran long. Coffee's ready. I'll be home by 9. Love you. But when 9 came and went with no Min-jun, worry started to build. She called him. Straight to voicemail. She called his office. No answer. She called his assistant. Mrs. Park, I was just about to call you. Mr. Park left this morning for a meeting and hasn't checked in. His driver says he got into a different car, someone he seemed to know. But we can't locate him. Naomi's blood went cold. How long ago? 6 hours. Why wasn't I notified immediately? Mr. Park left strict instructions not to disturb you unless he was gone more than 8 hours, he said. The assistant hesitated. He said he was handling something personally and would be back before lunch. But it was past lunch now, past dinner. Night was falling, and Min-jun was missing. Naomi called his head of security. Find him. Now, use every resource we have. Already on it, Mrs. Park. We're tracking his phone, his car, pulling surveillance footage. Faster. She paced the penthouse, Hope sleeping peacefully in her nursery, completely unaware that her father had vanished. Every minute felt like an hour. Every scenario her mind conjured was worse than the last. What if someone had taken him? What if this was retaliation for the man he'd put in prison? What if her phone rang? Unknown number. She answered immediately. Hello? Naomi. Min-jun's voice, rough but alive. I'm okay. Where are you? What happened? I had to handle something. I'm sorry. I thought I'd be back hours ago, but it got complicated. He sighed. I'm on my way home now. 20 minutes. Min-jun, I'll explain everything, I promise. Just wait for me, okay? He hung up. Naomi wanted to scream or cry or both. Instead, she fed Hope and waited, terror and fury warring in her chest. Exactly 20 minutes later, Min-jun walked through the door. He looked exhausted, suit rumpled, hair disheveled, exhaustion written across his face, but whole. Alive. Naomi launched herself at him, torn between relief and anger. Where were you? He caught her easily, pulling her close. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to worry you. You disappeared for 12 hours. I know, I was... He pulled back, hands framing her face. Your father called me this morning. Emergency meeting. He said he had information about a new threat, but it couldn't wait. I thought it would be quick. Just a briefing. But when I got there, his jaw tightened. It was a setup. Not by him, someone else. They held both of us for hours, trying to negotiate. Negotiate what? My business, my power. They thought kidnapping both of us would force concessions. His smile was sharp. They were wrong. How did you get out? Let's just say they realized threatening my family was a fatal mistake. He kissed her forehead. It's handled. The threat is gone. Your father, he actually helped, proved he's changed. Naomi sagged against him. You can't do this to me. You can't just disappear. I know. I'm sorry. I thought... He stopped, then started again. I was trying to protect you. Handle it before you knew there was danger. But that was wrong. You deserve to know everything, even when it's scary. Especially when it's scary. You're right. I'm sorry. He pulled her closer. It won't happen again. From now on, no secrets, even when I'm trying to protect you. She wanted to stay angry, but the relief of having him home safe overwhelmed everything else. She buried her face in his chest and let herself shake. I thought I lost you, she whispered. Never. You're stuck with me forever. Promise. I promise. Nothing, and I mean nothing, will ever keep me from coming home to you and hope. He tilted her face up. You're my entire world, Naomi. Without you, nothing else matters. She kissed him desperately, needing the physical confirmation that he was real, alive, here. When they finally broke apart, he rested his forehead against hers. Let's go check on Hope. Then I need to hold both of you for the rest of the night. They stood over Hope's crib together, watching their daughter sleep. Minjun's arm was locked around Naomi's waist, like he couldn't bear the distance. She's perfect, he whispered. She is. We're so lucky. We are. He turned to face her fully. I will spend every day of the rest of my life making sure you both know how much I love you, that you're safe, that you're everything. I know. I've always known. Good, because I'm not going anywhere, ever. Even death wouldn't stop me from finding my way back to you. It should have sounded dramatic. Instead, it sounded like a vow. That night, they fell asleep tangled together, Hope's monitor on the nightstand, the three of them safe in their fortress of love.